A single mom janitor saved a man with a kiss. Minutes later, his billionaire identity was revealed. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. He collapses without warning. 1 second he is standing, the next his knees buckle and his body hits the polished floor with a sound that cuts through the room. Conversations stop. Glasses freeze halfway to lips. Someone screams his name. Someone else shouts for help, but no one moves. His face turns an unnatural shade of gray. His chest does not rise. His lips part but no air comes out. People gather in a tight circle, shoes edging closer, fear holding them back. Phones come out. Someone says to call 911. Someone else says to wait for security. Another voice insists, a doctor must be nearby. Seconds pass. Too many seconds. And then she steps forward. She is not supposed to be there, at least not like this. She is wearing a plain uniform, dark blue with a name tag that most people never bother to read. She has a mop bucket a few feet away and cleaning gloves tucked into her back pocket. To everyone else in the room she is invisible. But she sees something they do not. She sees his chest still. She sees the slight blue creeping into his lips. She sees the way his eyes stare without focus. She does not think about who he is. She does not think about the rules. She does not think about the job she could lose. She only thinks one thing. If I do not act now, he dies. She drops to her knees. Her hands shake as she places them on his chest, pressing hard, counting under her breath. 1, 2, 3. She leans down, tilts his head and seals her mouth over his. It is not gentle. It is desperate. A life-saving kiss. Air forced into lungs that refuse to work. Again and again. Someone yells for her to stop. Someone grabs her shoulder, then pulls back, unsure. She keeps going. Her arms burn. Her lungs ache. Her mind screams that she is crossing a line she cannot uncross. Then he coughs. A sharp, violent sound. His body jerks. Air rushes back into him like it had been waiting just outside the door. The room erupts, shouts, gasps, relief crashing in waves. He sucks in a breath, then another, eyes fluttering as color slowly returns to his face. She stumbles backward, sitting hard on the floor, heart pounding so loud she can barely hear anything else. He is alive. Only then does reality crash into her. Hands point at her. Voices rise, not in thanks but in accusation. What did you do? Who told you to touch him? Do you have any idea who that is? Security pushes through the crowd. A man in a tailored suit kneels beside the one she just saved, speaking urgently into a phone. Another person orders the area cleared. Someone demands her name. She stands, slowly wiping her hands on her uniform, already bracing herself. She is a single mother. A janitor. She works night shifts and early mornings to keep food on the table and lights on at home. She knows how this usually goes. People like her do not get praised for stepping out of line. They get blamed. An ambulance siren wails in the distance, growing louder. As paramedics rush in with equipment far more advanced than her bare hands, the whispers around her change. Not softer, sharper. That is him. That is really him. Did you hear the name they just said? Her stomach drops. She looks at the man on the stretcher now, surrounded by professionals, oxygen mask over his face, and finally understands what everyone else already knows. The man she kissed to keep alive is not just anyone, and in just a few minutes the world is about to make sure she understands exactly who he is. The noise fades as the paramedics take over. They move fast, practiced, efficient, surrounding Jonathan Reed with equipment that looks far more official than Sarah Miller's trembling hands ever did. Oxygen flows. Monitors beep. Orders are given in sharp, confident voices. The crowd steps back as if a line has been drawn on the floor. Sarah stands off to the side, suddenly unsure where she belongs. A few minutes ago she was the only reason he was still alive. Now she feels like an afterthought. She presses her palms against her uniform, trying to steady the shaking. Adrenaline drains from her body, leaving behind a cold, heavy fear. Her heart is still racing, but her mind has already moved somewhere else. To consequences. She has seen this before. Not on this scale, but enough times to recognize the pattern. Someone crosses an invisible boundary. Someone breaks protocol. And the person with the least power pays for it. She glances at the security guards whispering to each other near the entrance. One of them looks at her, then looks away. Another speaks into his radio, eyes flicking back toward her like she is a problem that needs to be handled. Sarah swallows hard. She is a single mother. Every decision she makes carries weight far beyond herself. Her son is 6 years old. His name is Ethan. He is probably at home right now, asleep on the couch with the television still on low, waiting for her to come back from another long shift. She promised him pancakes in the morning. She promised him she would not be late again. Those promises are fragile. Her job is fragile. The uniform she wears is not just fabric. It is rent, groceries, school supplies, gas in the car that barely starts on cold mornings. It is survival, and she may have just destroyed it. A woman in a blazer approaches her, heels clicking sharply against the floor. She does not smile. She does not introduce herself. "What is your name?" the woman asks. Sarah answers quietly. "Sarah Miller." "And what is your position here?" "I am part of the overnight cleaning staff," Sarah says. The woman nods once, making a note on her phone. "Did anyone instruct you to intervene?" "No," Sarah admits. The woman's lips press together. "Did you receive any medical training?" Sarah hesitates. "I took a first aid course years ago, at my son's school." That answer feels small the moment it leaves her mouth. The woman exhales slowly, already looking past her. "We will need a statement." Sarah nods. She does not argue. She does not defend herself. She knows better. Around them the whispers grow louder. Some people look at her with curiosity, some with suspicion, a few with something close to gratitude. But gratitude does not pay bills. As Jonathan Reed is lifted onto a stretcher, someone nearby says his name out loud, not quietly, not accidentally. Jonathan Reed. The name ripples through the room like a shockwave. Sarah hears it and feels her stomach drop. She has heard that name before. Everyone has. It is on buildings, on news articles, on donations announced with applause and champagne glasses. It belongs to a man who owns companies and decisions and futures. It belongs to a billionaire. Her knees feel weak. She looks at the man she just saved, really looks at him now. The tailored suit, the watch that probably costs more than her car, the way everyone suddenly stands straighter as he is wheeled past. Her mind struggles to catch up. I kissed him. Not as a woman, not as anything romantic, but the reality still hits her all at once, sharp and overwhelming. She crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. As the stretcher disappears through the doors, the room begins to empty. People drift away, their excitement fading now that the drama is over. Life moves on quickly for those who are not at risk of losing everything. Sarah stays where she is. A security guard finally approaches her. His voice is not unkind, but it is firm. "You need to come with me, ma'am." She nods again. As she follows him down the hallway, her thoughts race ahead to the worst possibilities. Termination paperwork. A phone call she does not want to make, explaining to Ethan why things are suddenly harder. All she did was save a life. But in her world, that does not always matter. And she has no idea that somewhere down the hall Jonathan Reed is asking one question over and over again. Who was the woman who saved me? The small office smells like disinfectant and old coffee. Sarah Miller sits in a hard plastic chair, hands folded tightly in her lap. The security guard stands near the door, arms crossed, silent. Across from her, the same woman in the blazer scrolls through notes on a tablet, expression unreadable. Time stretches. "Walk me through exactly what happened," the woman finally says without looking up. Sarah takes a breath. She tells the truth, because that is all she has. She describes the collapse, the way Jonathan Reed stopped breathing, the way no one else moved. The moment she realized there was no time to wait. "I did not think," Sarah says quietly. "I just acted." The woman looks up then. "You understand that you violated company protocol?" "Yes," Sarah replies. "You exposed the company to liability." "Yes. And you put yourself at risk." Sarah nods again. "I know." There is nothing defensive in her voice. No anger. Just acceptance. The woman studies her for a long moment, as if trying to decide what kind of person sits across from her. Then she stands. "Wait here." The door closes. Sarah is alone. The silence presses in heavy and loud at the same time. Her thoughts drift to the same place they always do when she is scared. Ethan. She pictures his small sneakers by the door, his backpack with the frayed zipper, the way he hugs her leg when she comes home late pretending he is not tired. She pulls her phone from her pocket and checks the time. Too late to pick him up herself. Her neighbor agreed to watch him tonight just in case. Sarah had hoped it would be unnecessary. Her phone buzzes softly. A text message. "Everything okay?" it reads. Sarah stares at the screen. She types, deletes, then types again. "I am fine," she finally sends. It is easier than explaining. Down the hall a very different conversation is taking place. Jonathan Reed lies in a private hospital room, wires attached to his chest machines, quietly tracking every breath he takes. The world feels distant, muffled, like he is listening through water. A doctor speaks, but Jonathan barely hears him. "You are lucky," the doctor says. If intervention had been delayed by even a minute. Jonathan closes his eyes. A minute. He remembers fragments. The sudden dizziness. The floor rushing up. Darkness pressing in from all sides. And then something else. Pressure. Air. Pain in his chest. A face above him. Not a blur. Not a dream. A woman. He opens his eyes and looks at the assistant standing beside the bed. "Who saved me?" The assistant hesitates. "Sir, we are still gathering details." Jonathan's voice sharpens despite his weakness. "Find her." Back in the office, the door opens again. The woman in the blazer returns this time, accompanied by a man Sarah recognizes immediately. He is part of upper management. He has never spoken to her before. He barely looks at her now. "Miss Miller," he says, "given the circumstances, you will be placed on temporary leave while we complete a full review." Sarah hears the words clearly. Temporary leave. No paycheck, no certainty. She nods. "I understand." The man seems surprised by how calm she is. "You will be contacted," he continues. "Do not speak to anyone about what happened." Sarah stands. "May I go?" "Yes," the woman replies. As Sarah walks out of the building, the night air hits her face cool and grounding. She exhales a breath she feels like she has been holding for hours. She does not feel like a hero. She feels small, exposed, uncertain. She drives home in silence, fingers gripping the steering wheel, replaying everything in her mind. She wonders if she would make the same choice again. The answer comes easily. Yes. Even if it costs her everything. What she does not know is that her name has just been spoken out loud in a very different room. Sarah Miller. Jonathan Reed repeats slowly, committing it to memory. And for the first time since he woke up, he is not thinking about his company, his schedule, or his reputation. He is thinking about the woman who refused to let him die. Morning comes too early. Sarah Miller wakes before her alarm, the pale light of dawn creeping through the thin curtains of her apartment. For a few seconds she forgets where she is. Then reality settles in, heavy and familiar. Temporary leave. The words echo in her mind as she sits up, rubbing her face with both hands. Her body aches in places she did not realize could ache. Her arms feel sore, her chest tight, as if the night never really ended. From the couch, Ethan stirs. "Mom," his small voice calls out, thick with sleep. "I am here," Sarah says immediately, forcing warmth into her tone. She stands and walks over, brushing his hair back gently. "Did I wake you?" He shakes his head. "Are you going to work?" The question lands harder than he knows. Sarah hesitates, then smiles. "Not today. We have a special morning together." Ethan grins, already distracted by the idea of pancakes. Sarah moves into the kitchen, going through the motions she has repeated hundreds of times. Batter, pan, heat, normal things, safe things, but even as she flips the pancakes her thoughts drift back to the night before, to the look on the woman's face, to the word liability, to the name Jonathan Reed rippling through the crowd. She checks her phone. No missed calls, no messages from work, no explanation. Silence can be louder than shouting. Across the city, Jonathan Reed does not experience silence at all. His hospital room hums with quiet activity. Doctors come and go. Nurses check his vitals. Assistants whisper just outside the door, careful not to disturb him. Everything is controlled, organized, efficient, except his thoughts. He stares at the ceiling, replaying the moment again and again. The collapse, the darkness, and then the feeling of air filling his lungs, painful and necessary. He remembers her face more clearly now. The determination, the fear she tried to hide, the way she did not hesitate. She saved your life, the doctor tells him later that morning, as if it is a fact that can simply be stated and moved past. Jonathan shakes his head slightly. No one else did. The doctor pauses, understanding the weight behind his words. She acted quickly. Find her, Jonathan says again. It is not a request. Back at the building where it all happened, the story has already begun to change. Whispers turn into speculation. Speculation turns into rumors. By midday, employees are trading half-formed versions of the truth in elevators and break rooms. A janitor kissed him. She broke protocol. She could have killed him. She saved him. No one knows which version is right, but all of them carry her image in some distorted form. Sarah feels it when she returns to pick up her things later that afternoon. The front desk receptionist looks at her differently. Conversations stop when she walks by. A supervisor avoids her eyes completely. She keeps her head down, focusing on the simple task of collecting her bag. She does not want sympathy. She does not want judgment. She just wants to leave. As she steps outside, a black car pulls up to the curb. She notices it only because it looks out of place, too polished, too deliberate. The driver steps out and glances at her, then checks something on his phone. He does not approach. Instead, he waits. Sarah's heart begins to race. Is this about last night? She walks past the car, quickly telling herself she is being paranoid. But as she reaches the bus stop, she cannot shake the feeling that something has shifted, that forces far beyond her control have begun to move. That night, after Ethan is asleep, Sarah sits alone at the small kitchen table, bills spread out in front of her. She runs the numbers again, hoping they will somehow change. They do not. She closes her eyes and exhales slowly. She did the right thing. She knows that. But knowing does not make the future any less uncertain. At the hospital, Jonathan Reed sits up for the first time, ignoring the protest of the machines attached to him. Her name is Sarah Miller, his assistant says quietly, finally answering the question that has been hanging in the air all day. She works on the cleaning staff. Jonathan nods, absorbing the information. Sarah Miller. A single mother. A janitor. The woman who chose his life over her own safety. He looks out the window at the city below, at thousands of lives moving without realizing how close one of them came to ending. Bring her to me, he says, and with that decision the balance between their two worlds begins to tilt slowly but irrevocably. The call comes just after noon. Sarah Miller is folding laundry when her phone rings, the unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. She stares at it for a moment, heart thudding, before answering. Hello, Miss Miller, a calm male voice says. Professional, controlled. This is Mark Lawson. I am an executive assistant to Jonathan Reed. Sarah's breath catches. Yes, she says carefully. Mr. Reed has requested to meet you, Mark continues. As soon as possible. The words do not sound like a request. They sound like something already decided. Sarah lowers herself into a chair. Is this about what happened? Yes. There is a pause, heavy with unspoken possibilities, where she asks, Westbridge Private Hospital, he replies. A car will pick you up in 30 minutes. The line goes dead. Sarah sits still, phone pressed to her ear long after the call ends. Her mind races through everything that could go wrong. Was she in trouble? Was this a legal formality? Was this where they made it clear she had crossed a line that could not be forgiven? She glances toward the bedroom where Ethan is napping. She will not bring him into this. She calls her neighbor again, asking for one more favor, then changes into the cleanest clothes she owns. When the black car pulls up outside, her stomach twists. The hospital is quiet when she arrives, hushed in the way only expensive places know how to be. She is guided through hallways that feel removed from the rest of the world, past doors she knows she would never normally be allowed to approach. Mark stops in front of one of them. "He is awake," he says. "He asked for you by name." Sarah nods, fingers curling into her palms. The door opens. Jonathan Reed sits upright in the bed, color back in his face, dark eyes alert despite the monitors surrounding him. He looks smaller than she remembers, more human. For a moment neither of them speaks. Then Jonathan breaks the silence. "You are Sarah Miller." "Yes," she replies. He studies her, not like a man used to being obeyed, but like someone trying to understand something important. "You saved my life." "I did what anyone should have done," Sarah says quietly. Jonathan shakes his head. "No. You did what no one else did." He gestures to the chair beside the bed. She hesitates, then sits. "I want you to know," he continues, voice steady, "that if you had not acted when you did, I would not be here. That is not opinion. That is fact." Sarah swallows. "I did not know who you were." "I know," Jonathan says, and for the first time a faint smile touches his lips. "That is why this matters." There is a knock at the door. A doctor enters briefly, nods at Jonathan, then leaves again. The interruption seems to solidify something in the air. Jonathan turns back to her. "Do you know what people are saying about you?" Sarah looks down. "I can imagine." "They are wrong," he says, "and that will be corrected." She looks up sharply. "Publicly," Jonathan adds. "No one will suggest that you acted recklessly or without reason. No one will question your integrity. Not now. Not later." Sarah feels a tightness in her chest she did not realize was there begin to loosen. "I did not ask for anything," she says, as if she needs him to understand. "I know," Jonathan replies. "That is exactly why I am offering." She frowns. "Offering what? Respect?" He does not say the word out loud, but it hangs between them. "You saved my life without knowing my name, my title, or my worth," Jonathan says. That kind of courage does not disappear after one moment. Sarah sits very still, unsure where this conversation is leading. Jonathan leans back, slightly careful of the wires. "You should not have to worry about losing your job for doing the right thing." The reveal settles fully now. Not just of who he is, but of what he intends to do. The man she saved is not only a billionaire. He is someone who remembers, and he is about to change everything she thought she knew about power, justice, and what it means to truly be seen. The correction happens faster than Sarah Miller expects. By the next morning, her phone will not stop vibrating. Messages from coworkers. Missed calls from a supervisor who had never learned her name before. Even her neighbor sends a short text asking if she is all right, followed by a link Sarah does not want to open. She opens it anyway. A short statement has been released. Not vague. Not buried. Clear. Jonathan Reed, CEO and founder of Reed Global, publicly credits a member of the cleaning staff for saving his life during a medical emergency. He states that her actions were decisive, courageous, and directly responsible for his survival. Sarah reads it twice, then a third time. Her name is there. Spelled correctly. Her hands tremble as she lowers the phone. For the first time since the night of the collapse, the weight on her chest shifts. Not gone, but lighter. At the corporate building, the atmosphere changes instantly. People who avoided her eyes now nod as she passes. A supervisor clears his throat awkwardly and apologizes for how things were handled. Temporary leave becomes paid leave. An internal memo follows reminding everyone that intervention in life-threatening emergencies is not a violation, it is a responsibility. The words matter, but the timing matters more. Sarah realizes something important. He did not fix this quietly. He fixed it where everyone could see. That afternoon she is asked to return to the hospital. This time she is not escorted through side hallways. She walks openly past staff who recognize her now not as a problem but as a person. Jonathan Reed is sitting in a chair by the window when she enters. He looks stronger than before, more grounded. "You did not have to do all that," Sarah says softly. "Yes," Jonathan replies, meeting her eyes. "I did." He gestures for her to sit, but this time she does not hesitate. "When I woke up," he continues, "I was told there were legal concerns, risk management discussions, suggestions to keep things contained." Sarah nods. She expected that. "I ignored them," Jonathan says. She looks at him surprised. "I have spent most of my life surrounded by people who calculate value before they act," he continues. "You did not." He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. "What you did deserves more than gratitude. It deserves protection." Sarah takes a slow breath. "I do not want charity." Jonathan nods immediately. "I would not offer it." He leans forward slightly. "I want you to have a choice." He explains calmly. "No pressure, no urgency. A role within the company. One created, not handed down. A position focused on employee safety training and emergency preparedness. Paid training. Benefits. Hours that would not force her to choose between work and her son. You would be helping make sure no one ever freezes the way they did that night," he says. "Including me." Sarah listens in silence. This is not a reward, dressed up as generosity. It is an invitation. "I need time," she says finally. Jonathan smiles, not offended. "Of course you do." As she leaves the hospital, Sarah feels something unfamiliar settling in her chest. Not relief. Possibility. She still does not see herself as a hero. But she is beginning to understand that sometimes doing the right thing does more than save a life. Sometimes it changes who gets to stand up next time. Sarah Miller does not decide right away. She goes home that evening with Jonathan Reed's offer echoing in her head, sitting beside the everyday sounds of her life. Ethan's laughter as he tells her about school. The clink of dishes in the sink. The hum of the old refrigerator that never quite shuts up. Normal things. She watches her son eat dinner, noticing how small his hands still are, how quickly he grows without her realizing it. Every choice she makes seems to circle back to him. After he falls asleep, Sarah sits at the kitchen table, the same one where she usually sorts bills and worries about numbers that never quite add up. Tonight the numbers look different. Not solved, but no longer impossible. She thinks about Jonathan Reed's words. Choice, protection, possibility. She thinks about the way he looked at her, not as a charity case or a headline but as someone whose actions mattered. The next day she returns to the hospital. Jonathan is dressed in casual clothes, now standing near the window when she arrives. He turns when he hears her footsteps. "You came back," he says. "I needed to see this place again," Sarah replies. Without fear. He nods, understanding. They sit not across from each other this time, but side by side. The city stretches below them, busy and indifferent. "I have been thinking," Sarah says carefully, "about what you offered." Jonathan waits. He does not interrupt. "I am not afraid of hard work," she continues. "I have done it my whole life. What I am afraid of is losing myself in someone else's world." Jonathan turns to her. "Then do not." She meets his eyes. "If I say yes, it has to be on my terms." A smile appears slow and genuine. "I would expect nothing less." She explains what she needs. Training that respects her time. Hours that let her be present for Ethan. A voice in the room, not just a title on paper. Jonathan listens. Not politely. Fully. "These are not conditions," he says when she finishes. "They are standards." Something shifts between them then. Subtle but real. This is no longer just about gratitude or justice. It is about alignment. They begin to meet regularly after that. At first, it is all practical. Paperwork, planning, conversations about safety protocols, and employee support. But somewhere between discussions, other things begin to surface. Jonathan talks about the pressure of always being needed but rarely being known. Sarah talks about the exhaustion of being strong all the time. They do not rush anything. There is no dramatic confession, Just a growing ease, a sense that being in the same space feels right. One afternoon, Jonathan asks a simple question. "Would you have done it differently," he says, "if you had known who I was?" Sarah does not hesitate. "No." He exhales slowly, as if he has been holding that question for a long time. That answer matters more to him than she realizes. As Sarah leaves that day, she feels something settle into place. Not certainty, trust. And for the first time, Jonathan Reed begins to see a future that is not built on control or power, but on something far more unfamiliar: connection. Change does not arrive all at once. It comes in quiet adjustments, small moments that add up before Sarah Miller realizes her life no longer looks the same. Her first day in the new role feels unfamiliar, not overwhelming but new in a way that makes her stand a little straighter. She no longer wears the janitor uniform. Instead, she walks into the building with an employee badge that carries her name and her position: Employee Safety and Preparedness Coordinator. The title still feels strange on her tongue. She spends her mornings in training sessions learning procedures she once watched from the margins. Afternoons are filled with conversations. Real ones. With people who clean floors, guard doors, and work overnight shifts. People who, like her, were used to being overlooked. She listens more than she speaks. That is where her strength shows. At home, Ethan notices the changes too. She is there in the mornings now. She walks him to school instead of rushing out the door before sunrise. She sits with him while he eats cereal, listening to stories about playground arguments and spelling tests. One evening, as she tucks him into bed, he looks up at her and asks, "Mom, are you happy?" The question catches her off guard. She considers it carefully. "I think I am learning how to be," she says. He smiles, satisfied with that answer. Jonathan Reed watches the transformation from a careful distance. He does not interfere. He does not hover. He lets Sarah define the space she occupies, even when it challenges the way his company has always operated. When she speaks in meetings, people listen, not because of him, because she speaks with clarity earned from experience. She brings changes that are practical, not performative. Emergency response training becomes mandatory across all levels. Clear protocols are established not to protect liability but to protect lives. When someone thanks her, she deflects gently. "This is about all of us," she says. Jonathan sees something else happening too. The building feels different. Not softer, more human. Their conversations shift as weeks pass. They talk about books they both enjoy, about music that reminds them of places they have been, about the cost of always being responsible. One evening, after a long day, they sit together in a quiet conference room, city lights glowing outside the windows. "You changed this place," Jonathan says. Sarah shakes her head. "I did not. I just asked people to see what was already there." He studies her, something unspoken moving behind his eyes. "I am glad it was you," he says. For what she asks. For that night, he replies. And everything after. Sarah meets his gaze, feeling the weight of those words settle gently between them. This is no longer about rescue or gratitude. It is about growth, about two lives intersecting at a moment that could have ended very differently. She stands to leave, gathering her things. Jonathan does not stop her, but he walks her to the door. "Dinner sometime," he asks, casual but sincere. She pauses, then nods. "I would like that." As she steps into the hallway, Sarah realizes something important. She is not stepping into his world. They are building something new in the space between them, and for the first time since the night she dropped to her knees to save a stranger, the future feels steady beneath her feet. The room is filled with quiet applause. Not the loud kind meant for headlines or cameras, but the kind that comes from recognition, from people who know what it means to be seen. Sarah Miller stands at the front of the room, hands relaxed at her sides. Around her are employees from every level of the company. Security staff, night cleaners, office managers, executives who once rushed past her without noticing. Today they are listening. "This is not about what I did," Sarah says, her voice steady. "It is about what any one of you would do if you felt empowered to act." She pauses, letting the words settle. "Lives do not get saved by titles," she continues. They get saved by people who are allowed to care. The applause that follows is longer this time. Jonathan Reed watches from the back of the room, a quiet smile on his face. He does not step forward. He does not take credit. He knows better now. After the meeting, they walk out together into the late afternoon light. The city hums around them, familiar and alive. "You were right," Jonathan says. "About all of it." Sarah glances at him. "About what?" "About building something new," he replies. "Not replacing one world with another." They stop at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. Jonathan looks down at her, serious now in a way she recognizes. "I want you to know," he says, "that night will always matter to me. But not because of how it ended." She waits. "Because of how it began," he finishes. "With someone choosing to act when no one else would." The light turns green. They cross together. Life settles into a rhythm after that. There is no dramatic rush. No sudden fairy tale ending. Just steady days built on shared respect. Ethan meets Jonathan slowly, cautiously at first, then with the simple honesty only a child has. "You are the man my mom saved," he says one afternoon. Jonathan nods. "Yes." Ethan considers this. "I am glad she did." Jonathan feels the weight of that statement more than any boardroom decision he has ever made. On the anniversary of the night, everything changed. Jonathan and Sarah stand together in the same building where it all began. A small plaque has been placed near the entrance. It does not mention wealth or power. It reads simply, "In this place a life was saved because someone chose courage." Sarah reads it once, then looks away. "You did not have to do that," she says softly. Jonathan takes her hand. "Yes," he replies, "I did." They stand there for a moment, the noise of the world passing around them. A single mother, a janitor, a man who almost died. None of those labels matter anymore. What matters is what followed. She did not save a billionaire. She saved a man. And in doing so, she reminded him and everyone else that true power is not about who you are. It is about what you do when someone needs you most.